Hi everyone, welcome to Itsy Bitsy's live read from Hail Mary by Hope Anika. Prologue. In the beginning, the dream is always good, her hand gripping his, her scent filling his head, her smile, anticipation and joy for the night to come. Them together, as it should have always been. The evening is balmy, humid, and fragrant. The electrical pulse of club music ripples into them on a salty breeze. To the west, the sun is sinking in a ball of fury, orange-red, streaked by brilliant strands of pink and gold. Palm fawns dance where the pavement gives way to pale white sand, whispering as the wind strokes through them. He can taste chocolate and hops. His belly is full, his wife is laughing, and life is fucking good. The tingle whispers across his nape as they cross the street. Slight, probably nothing. He ignores the flash of awareness that immediately follows, because no one would dare take him. Not here, not now. The Jeep door sticks when he opens it for her. Unusual, but not surprising. It's an old Jeep. A creak as he closes it, and he makes a mental note to oil the hinges. Seagulls watch as he circles the front of the Jeep, and the tingles hardens to a bristle as the fine hair that covers his frame stands abruptly to attention. He hesitates, and then his wife smiles at him through the glass, and he discounts the flicker of unease, intent on the invitation she emanates. Arrogant and thoughtless and fucking stupid. So many signs. He smiles back and the dream tears like a worn piece of paper. He shimmers into ghostly being, a handful of feet from his fate. Even knowing the words are futile, he begins to scream. Stop! Stop! Get her out! Don't go forward! Go back! Go the hell back! It's wrong. All wrong. You saw the signs. Pay attention. No. No. Don't open that goddamn door. The Jeep's handle is warm from the fading sun. He thinks nothing of taking it in his hand, of pulling open the door of the vehicle that will take him home, where he will pull his lovely wife beneath him, and click. The explosion is instant. Ignition so quick there is nothing but sound. A deafening blast, and a shock wave so violent it shatters bone. His eardrums perforate her scream and soundless as he is launched like a rocket across space and time, only to crash abruptly back to the earth. His body bouncing over the unforgiving concrete like a stone skipping across water. His ears ring, his head throbs, blood fills his mouth. Debris pellets him as he skids to a stop. Smoke clogs his throat. Her face is burned into his mind's eye. That brief, horrific instant of realization, and then flames, eating her up. He rolls over, his heart ready to burst, adrenaline like acid in his blood, ready to leap into action, to save her, only to realize there is nothing left of his leg but jagged bone and charred flesh connected by only the tiniest sliver of tendon. For a moment he feels nothing, as if his mangled femur and disintegrated kneecap belong to another, as if the blood spilling out around him is being pumped from someone else's veins. But he tries to roll onto his good leg, to get it beneath him, to fucking stand up. But his brain is churning in his skull, and his arms are numb, and his good leg, the only one left, won't work. He fights to drag himself to her, but nothing is cooperating, and he can only lie there and watch her burn. Smoke, acid on his tongue, his blood a thick, deep pool in which he hopes he will drown, God willing. Because the Jeep is black smoke and hungry white flame, and he can't see her, he can't hear her. But he knows. He knows she is in there. Just as he knows this is his fault. His arrogance, his stupidity, his unforgivable certainty of his ability to keep her safe, protected from the realities of his existence. She is burning because of him. The pool of blood grows deeper, but it isn't enough. He has no desire to survive this acracy. He has prepared to go, has always been prepared to go. But she isn't like him. She is good and strong and true. She brings hope and light and love, while he brings only death. She has saved him 1,000,000 times, from war, from apathy, from himself, tempted him into trying, enticed him into believing, seduced him into living, to live, as she burns. Murder right in fucking front of him. As he imagined taking her home to bed, someone watched and waited, breathless with anticipation. He knows, he can feel them, still watching, still breathless, hungry for his pain. He should want revenge, to survive so he can peel away their skin and splinter their bones, make their world bleed red, burn it to fucking ash, as his now is. But he doesn't care. There is no part of him that would sacrifice death for life in search of vengeance. To avenge her means he must survive, without her, and that is not something he is prepared to do. The river of blood that streams away from him is a relief. Be with her. There is no other option. He will not survive without her. Fate could not be so cruel, could it? A thought he cannot bear. He turns it aside and tells himself soon. Soon. The jeep burns, she burns, and he watches. Chapter 1. I'm being watched. Wynne Owens did her best to ignore the heavy weight of the stare that tracked her as she made her way through the collection of booths that lined the Superior County Fair building. Her neck prickled as she surveyed the goods for sale. Mr. Glenn's raw honey, Mrs. Baker's ceramic pigs, and old Henley Jenkins' homemade salsa, organic herbs, fresh cheese, free-range eggs, a collection of fruits and berries, and home-grown vegetables. There was even a booth with fresh fish and an earthly array of wild mushrooms. The sight gave her a pang. Next year, she consoled herself, because stupid birds, greedy and voracious, the raucous black starlings had decimated her yield. Her apples and cherries and sweet crisp pears, heartless vultures. It wasn't like there wasn't enough to go around, or that she begrudged them an easy meal. But come on. Then, unexpectedly, last week, a red-tailed hawk had appeared. 2 days later, its mate had arrived, and together they made a meal of the starlings. Circle of life, she had told the pile of feathers left behind. She hadn't exactly celebrated. Death always made her sad. But she had taken heart that her fruit might make it to, fruitation. And beyond that, the hawk's presence was evidence that, finally, the land was beginning to heal. 9 long years of fighting blatant pests and leaching toxins out of the soil, of composting and growing field cover and coaxing life from the earth had finally begun to pay off. This year, there would be plenty of food, and if she was very lucky, some to sell as well. Her heart fluttered at the thought. Not just because it meant extra money, which was always welcome, because it meant success. The farm had recovered, without fertilizer, without pesticide, without extraditing wildlife. It could be done, sustained and profited from. Shove it up your arses. Superior County Farming Association, she punched in the air. You can suck it. Because she'd done that every farmer in the valley had told her was impossible, she turned the barren, overworked, and lifeless patch of ground into a thriving, diverse ecosystem that maintained and enriched the food she grew. The soil was rich and black, the trees were thriving, and the wildlife had started to return. And while she had to ride it out a long transition, one that tested the limits of both her patience and her hope, the wait had been worth it. Watching the land reawaken had been a profound experience, one that mended places inside of her she had known were broken. It also provided a much-needed stock of food that was growing more bountiful every year, and the purpose and joy it gave her elderly tenants, well, priceless, she declared, and turned down the next row of booths, accurately aware she was still being watched. The gaze that followed her was unwavering and intent, but Wayne refused to look. Don't do it, no matter the temptation. She passed fresh pastries and jam, but stopped to consider a collection of delicate handmade chocolates. They looked like celebration, and didn't she deserve some festivity? Not just her. Everyone who lived at the Owens boarding house had worked tirelessly to make the farm a success. Even Jenna, her 14-year-old sister, had given up afternoons with friends and after-school events in order to shovel manure and dig planting beds. This victory belonged to all of them. Thank you, Fran, Wynne whispered, a deep and painful ache in her chest. If only you'd lived to see it. Life was nothing if not a constant kick to the face. That her aunt had not survived to witness the germination of the seed she planted so long ago was profoundly unfair. Fran hadn't gotten the chance to taste the fruit or to harvest the corn. She never had the pleasure of thrusting her hands into that rich, silky soil. She'd never... Don't ruin it, Wynne scolded herself. But old hurts die hard deaths. Many years had come and gone since her jagged, dark, and, let's face it, fucked-up childhood, and yet still there were nights when she awoke with cold with sweat, with a heart drum in her chest, certain she had to run, even though those days were long gone. Missing Fran was like that. No matter the bounty, all Wynne felt was lost, and that made her angry, so angry. That the beauty and richness of today could be soured and undone by the ugliness of yesterday was infuriating. Looking back just points you in the wrong direction, she reminded herself, and then snorted because motivational poster, much? That Fran had suffered so badly before she died, so much so that she'd chosen to pass before her time, didn't help the healing, or the forgetting, or the moving forward. Not that Wynne could blame her. There was mercy in letting go, even if it hurt like hell. Stop it, she ordered, because her grief would change nothing. It would just undermine her joy in this accomplishment, and she deserved a little joy. A buttload of joy, she decided. Abandoning the chocolate, she moved on. The gaze watching her refused to waver, like a fiery beam of X-ray vision burning a hole into the back of her head. But she resisted the urge to look. Instead, she turned down the next row of booths. Hand-painted scarves, handmade lotions, stamped leather bags. There. Buck Ferris and his impressive collection of Anika steel, the best bladesmith in Superior County. No one could match the quality of Buck's work. Everything from hatchets and short swords to daggers and the finest kitchen knives decorated his booth, but Wynne was in search of more delicate fare. She had two of his pieces, a sweet serrated hunting knife and a tactical edge he'd given to her when she turned 16, the later of which she was never without. Another remnant of her childhood, her love of steel, or maybe just her love of survival. Wynne, is that you? Ah, crack on a cracker. Which was not, Wynne knew, the response a man who suddenly stood behind her was hoping for. In fact, he made clear more than once. Crap. She had zero desire to deal with him. All of those fragile male feelings took too much stinking effort. Men were exhausting, but blatantly ignoring him would be inexcusably rude even for her. So she made herself turn and look at him. "Hey," Eric Henley said and smiled. It was a nice smile, friendly and warm. It really shouldn't have annoyed her. "Hey," she replied reluctantly. Then she continued on toward Buck. Maybe Eric wouldn't. He followed, tall and broad, and his cold dark hair and glinting blue eyes. He was handsome, she supposed, if you went for that sort of thing. Thank you for listening to this portion.